Hello, this is Jeffrey Kirk. Several years ago, I hosted a series of interviews called the Web Genius Summit. This is one of those interviews. Please note that any links provided in this recording are likely no longer useful as intended. Products mentioned may or may not be available, but lessons discussed in this video still apply. With that, I hope you enjoy this abridged episode of the Web Genius Summit.
Today we're moving into another very hot topic. We're going to talk about working with Google AdWords. I've got Howie Jacobson on the call. Howie has been an internet marketing strategist since 1999. He specializes in helping clients use Google AdWords to grow their businesses. He leads seminars and workshops on beginner and advanced AdWords topics and provides coaching and support for individuals and groups, privately and through his Ring of Fire membership. Howie also has a company that produces software tools that help AdWords advertisers and AdWords consultants save time, reduce costs, and increase profits. If you've reviewed your pre-call prep work, you're already aware that he's the author of Google AdWords For Dummies, a very good reference book on a variety of AdWords issues. And I've been reading this book, and it, in my opinion, may be one of the best for dummies books out there. It's packed with info, and it's also quite entertaining to read. So luckily for all of us, Howie began his career as a school teacher. He learned through trial by fire how to be engaging, clear, and entertaining while providing value and motivating results. He is also a business coach and trainer, skilled in turning learning into action. He lives in Durham, North Carolina with his wife and 2 kids. And if you read the About the Author section in the book, it mentioned he's got a big goofy dog and a 3-legged rat, but apparently their earthly journey has come to an end. His lifelong ambition is to bring about world peace through marketing. And after he's accomplished that, he's setting his sights on playing ultimate frisbee in the 2044 Olympics in Maui. So apparently, Howie's got some inside information from the Olympic Site Selection Committee. Howie is on our call today, and he's going to be providing us some great things that you can do to improve your Google AdWords advertising. Or, if you've never used AdWords in the past, you're going to pick up some great pointers so that you do it the right way, saving yourself a bunch of time and money. Howie, anything you need to add to that?
Well, you know, the Maui thing is a leap of faith, as is the possibility that I'll still be walking and talking in 2044.
Good deal. All right. Well, let's dig in, starting at the beginning. I don't know how many of our listeners have actually used Google AdWords in the past, so you just tell us a little bit about what AdWords is and why our listeners should care about it.
Okay, so fast backward 10, 15 years, if you wanted to buy something and you didn't know where to go, or you wanted to find something out and you didn't know where to go, you generally went to the library, or if you wanted to buy something, you'd go to the Yellow Pages and you'd look for a furniture store or a plumber or whatever. And these days, you know, coming back to the present, how many people use the Yellow Pages for anything anymore? You know, the only use for it is for, you know, small children to be able to sit at the table. It's gone by the wayside. And what it's been replaced with, by and large, is Google. Google is where people go when they have itches that they want to scratch, whether they're informational itches or transactional itches, whether they want to learn how to do something or they want to know who that actress was. Whatever it is, we go to Google when we have a query or a question now. And it's become the de facto, you know, mommy, tell me how things work place for human beings to look up information, at least in the United States. So what Google did with that traffic was they started showing relevant ads along the sides. And Google has gotten really, really good at relevance in all its forms. So if you do a search on Google, you'll probably get what you're looking for on the first page, better than you would on any other search engine, which is how Google rose to prominence in the first place. And the ads have gotten more and more and more relevant as Google has put into place algorithms that reward ads that viewers click on and end up staying for a decent amount of time on that website. So now, if you want to be found by people, if you have a business and you want to be found, you need to be found on Google. And there's 2 ways to be found on Google. One is to do it organically, meaning to have your site be one of the top 10 for that keyword, whatever it is that people are typing in when they're looking for you. or you can use AdWords to buy your way to the first page of Google. So anyone who wants to be found by people searching on Google needs to know about Google AdWords as a method for paying your way onto the first page.
Cool. Are there some businesses that should be using AdWords and others that should not, or is it pretty universal these days that they should?
It's close to universal, at least for one reason. So there's two main ways you can use AdWords. One is you get customers to your site and they buy from you and you make money from them. So that's kind of classic advertising. Mm-hmm. That's a great reason to use AdWords, and not all businesses can do that. First of all, if you have something that people aren't searching for, it's hard to use search. Google also has a content network. If you've ever seen websites that have ads by Google on it, you can put your ads there as well. So it's not just for people doing actual keyword searches, but people kind of tooling around surfing the internet in general. But there are also, there's businesses for whom AdWords is going to be prohibitively expensive because you're competing for the same keywords against people with different business models who have a much higher profit margin than you do. And it's very hard to compete against competitors who can spend a lot more than you can and still turn a profit. But the other thing that that AdWords is really good for is market testing. It's just like an endless stream of survey data, and you can kind of dip your toe in the water and keep it in for a little while, pull it out, and then see which ad did the people like better, the one that talked about greed or the one that talked about fear. You can test keywords and see how many people are clicking on your ad for this keyword versus that keyword. You can turn on traffic on a dime, turn it off on a dime. There's no minimum spend, so you can say, I want to send 200 people to this web page and see what they think of it. And with all the tools out there, you can get very, very sophisticated metrics, and you can actually get tools that will take pictures of what they're doing on the site. So you can watch 100 people come to interact with your web page as if you were standing behind them. So this sort of data is something that just about any company could use. And it's a great way to jump in to see whether you can actually make money on AdWords. So I'd say most businesses can use it for one or the other or both.
Mm-hmm. So if you're testing and you find, like you gave the example of fear was one of them. What was the other? Greed?
Fear versus greed.
Fear versus greed.
Avoidance versus desire.
Yeah. So if you're testing ads that focus on one versus the other, and you're kind of saying if more people are responding to one than the other, then what? What are you doing with it? Just getting rid of the other one and using let's say fear wins, then you just go with fear in all your advertising?
Well, for that particular keyword. See, when we think about advertising, we think in terms of very broad media, like the yellow pages for Atlanta, Georgia would be one medium, or the radio station would be one medium. With AdWords, every single keyword represents its own medium. It's as if someone, let's take the example of the yellow pages again. Imagine a yellow book that's blank, it's magic. So what you do is you write in what you want to find. So you write in, plumber, Cummings, Georgia, and all of a sudden the yellow book magically fills only with ads for plumbers around the area of Cummings, Georgia. So that is its own medium. It's as if, you rub Aladdin's lamp and a magic mall pops up that's just devoted to you. So someone typing in plumber, Cummings, Georgia, would actually be a different medium than someone typing in busted pipe, Cummings, Georgia, or water in the basement, Atlanta. So all of these now represent different market segments. Every keyword is slightly different from every other keyword. So the trick to AdWords is then saying, well, this is a group of very, very similar keywords, and so we're going to see what is the appeal. What do people care about? So in that case, let's say the plumber, is it going to be, I'll get there in 30 minutes or it's free? Is it a warranty? Is it, I will leave your bathroom cleaner than when I arrived? What is it that people will respond to around that particular keyword? And busted pipe might get a very different response than, kitchen sink installation.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a very different set of messaging that would appeal to someone.
Sure. Well, in that case, the busted pipe sounds like an emergency. The installation sounds like something more relaxed.
Yeah. So then that's a great leap to make, is to look at the keywords and then reverse engineer to the mindset of the person who just typed it in. And that's one of the things that Google is fantastic for. Even if you never use AdWords, if you go type a keyword into Google, you'll see a whole page of what Google thinks that person wants. So you can get a lot of insight into your market just by looking and seeing what are other people offering them. It's as if, let's say you wanted to open up a store in the mall, and you walked through the mall first, and you saw, well, what kind of mall is it? Is it high-end? Do they have, Victoria's Secret and Williams-Sonoma and the fancy toy store with all the Brio trains out? Or is it more of a lower-scale mall with, woodworkers, whatever, a Kmart and things like that? Then you would know whether that's a good place to put your Rolex kiosk.
Sure.
So by looking at what Google is already showing people who type in that keyword, you can infer an awful lot about them. And remember, when you're advertising, you're always advertising in context of all their other choices. So Google is a great place to see all of their other choices right there. And can you write an ad that appeals to people and differentiates you from everybody else?
Right. Now, you bring up the mall, and seems like a decent analogy. What about a local business, a business that might find itself in or near a mall but isn't a national chain? They're just here. Can AdWords be useful even if they just need to reach people within a few miles of their location?
Yeah, AdWords is wonderful for local businesses because there's much less competition. If you're advertising nationally, you're going up against the best advertisers in the entire country. Mm-hmm. But if you're advertising as a plumber locally, Google is smart. They're not going to show an ad for an Illinois plumber in Atlanta. So, if you go to Google and just type in the word plumber, my guess is no matter where you are, Google is going to treat that as a local search and show you local listings with the little map, and they're going to show you local plumbers who are advertising and plumbing companies. Mm-hmm. So in that case, you're only going up against local folks, and doing anything around marketing generally gives you an edge over most people who don't do anything, who are scared of marketing, or who think that marketing is what Coca-Cola does, and if I want to do it, I want to do it like Coca-Cola mm-hmm. and just have silly brand slogans. That's going to work for my business. So, anyone who takes the time to be on this call or then goes and reads my book or any one of a dozen excellent books on AdWords can then reach their local market much more effectively than your competitors, because your competitors are probably not spending the time. If you're, let's say a plumber, they're not doing anything. They're probably just paying something like yellowpages.com or Superpages or one of those to buy AdWords for them. So, by doing it yourself, you get to interact directly with your customers. You get to learn what works and what doesn't work, and you're not paying the premium of the middleman who's then going to go advertise on AdWords. So you can get your leads much cheaper and much more effectively.
Sure. Good. Hey, one of our listeners asked if there's a way to show up higher on the local search listings next to the map. Is that influenced by AdWords?
It's supposedly not influenced by AdWords.
Okay.
And I'm not an expert on how to do that. Mm-hmm. I will say that if I were trying to show up on the map listing, the one thing I would do is try to get as many reviews as possible. So, use all your traffic to get people to write reviews. Because, if there's 10 listings, I would always go to the one that had 30 reviews as opposed to none or 2.
Sure.
But I don't actually know how to get to the top of the organic. The Internet has become such a complex business. I'm not even an expert on all areas of AdWords anymore.
Yeah, it just keeps growing.
There's people that I go to when I want to learn things about content network or about individual product links. There's so much new stuff. So I would say go find a local SEO person and and they can help you with that question.
Excellent. Well, I'll keep that on the open questions list, and maybe I'll find someone who can answer it. All right. You mentioned keywords, and that sounds like a very important consideration, maybe one of the most critical points. How can advertisers identify the right keywords to bid on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And luckily, you don't have to get it right away. So you can sort of like do a little bit scattershot, and as you collect data, Google will tell you which are the keywords that are bringing you traffic and which are the keywords that are bringing you money. But I would start with just common sense and kind of do some scenario planning and think, just kind of reverse engineer from what I've got. So if I am that plumber, I would think like, who would be calling me and what would they need? So I would make a list of the stuff that I want people to call me about. So if it's kitchen installation, if it's blocked toilets, if it's busted pipes, is it defrosting, frozen pipes? Just make a list of the problems that people would have, of the ways in which they would think about those problems, and the ways that they would begin to search for them. Then you can ask other people, because you're going to have a limited perspective, and the longer you've been in business, the more your head is going to be wrapped up in jargon that other people might not even be using. So, you might be thinking in terms of PVC 3/4 inch pipes, and no homeowner is going to type anything like that in.
Yeah.
So, ask other people and say, hey, if you had this problem, what would you type? There are also keyword tools that are very useful. In your AdWords account, those are all free. So there's a tool where if you type in a major keyword, it will give you lots of variations. So if you type in plumber, it'll give you hundreds and hundreds of suggestions for people who typed in plumber and then what else they typed in. Because Google collects a lot of data. So they know that you might type in plumber first and then you type in 24-hour plumber. And so they know those two are related somehow. You can also look at competitors' websites and your website for ideas for different keywords, and you can build it organically. There are tools that they're not expensive for what they do, where they'll actually give you other people's keywords, or the other keywords that other advertisers are using. So if you have a couple of competitors, you can set up one of these tools, and for maybe $50 or $100 a month, it'll give you a list of what searches went to their website from Google. So that's a very quick way of building. Buying. Yes, and just be aware that they can do it to you too. So I'm not crazy about these tools from a moral sense, because now everyone has to use them. But they're what's out there. It used to be, so 5 years ago, finding the right keywords was like a fisherman finding the right water, the right spot to drop line, and you wouldn't tell anybody else. Now, with all these tools and all this transparency, keywords are no longer the competitive advantage. So anyone can find good keywords now, as long as you know how. The competitive advantage is really what we talked about a little bit earlier, about getting into the mind of your market and understanding exactly what they want and crafting offers that match it more closely and more perfectly than any of your competitors.
Sure. Okay, so let's say somebody's figured out what keywords they want to use. How do they know how much they should bid for those?
Well, you kind of want to back into it from assumptions based on how much money you're going to make. If all you sell is one product, so if you sell a $30 ebook, then the bid price has to be very low. So assume you get a 1% conversion rate on your website, then you can't bid more than 30 cents to get someone to your website, or else you're going to lose money on the sale. So if you have a robust back end and you can get a customer at break even or at a loss, and you're going to sell them things over time, you can afford to spend a lot more. Basically, it comes down to knowing your numbers. And when you start out, you don't know your numbers, so you just make some very, very conservative estimates. You might say, well, suppose I can get my website to convert 1% to customers, or 0.5%, or be conservative and see, can this market even work for me? So to give you an example, at one point I was selling an ebook on how to prevent gout, which is a type of arthritis, with diet. And in the early days, I was able to make money with that on search. But over time, the companies who started buying up the keywords around gout began to have much more expensive offerings. There were a lot of companies selling herbal pills and supplements, and they had $80 a month, and that was recurring. So they could easily get $300, $400, $500 from a click. And me, with my little $30 ebook, quickly couldn't compete anymore.
Sure.
So how much you can bid really comes down to how much money a person on your website is worth to you. And that depends on what you're selling, how many times you can sell them, and how effectively you can sell them.
So letting one's ego in to say, I have to have my ad come out ahead of that other guy's ad is probably not a real good bidding strategy.
Not unless, someone else is footing the bill. There's companies that need to be on the top right, or else the chief marketing officer doesn't get their Christmas bonus. So, if you're spending your own money, there's no ego involved. It comes down to where are the highest profits.
Right. Good. Well, then the next step, keywords are chosen and it's time to write an ad. How about some tips for what could become an effective ad? And
Right.
by effective, I guess I don't mean just that they get clicks, but rather they get good clicks, potential buyers.
Right. Here's a visual for you, is a large circle with lots of dots inside it. That large circle is your keyword, and the dots are the individual searchers. So among those searchers who typed in that keyword, some of them are your market and some of them are not, for whatever reason. Maybe, let's say you have an ambiguous keyword like college tours. So who's typing in college tours? Is it high school students who want to take a college tour? Is it parents? Is it guidance counselors? Is it college students who want to make money by giving tours or working for a tour company? So within that one keyword, there's lots and lots of different roles people could be in. So you want to figure out, you want the clicks for the people that you can sell to, and you want to repel the clicks that you don't sell to. This comes up a lot, for example, if you do B2B, and there's also a consumer analog. For example, let's say energy efficiency. So if you're an energy efficiency company and you work with commercial enterprises, you'll find a lot of people searching energy efficiency are homeowners looking to put some caulking up or getting extra insulation in the attic. And so you're going to try to discourage those. So in general, your ad has to appeal to your ideal customer, repel everybody else, and prepare your ideal customer for what they're going to see on the landing page. By that I mean the first page they get to off of the ad on your website. So there are some best practices, and you want to follow those best practices unless everyone else is following them, in which case you want to diverge from them. So one best practice is use the keyword in the ad, maybe even in the headline. So they're typing in busted pipe, Atlanta, Georgia. Your headline is busted pipe, Atlanta, Georgia. But the more people read books like mine and everyone's doing that, then you need to zig a little bit where everybody else zags. So really we're going to get into the mind of the customer and ask ourselves a few basic questions. The most important question is, what promise does this person want me to make them? And when someone's doing a search, it's like they've pulled a rubber band tight, and now they're in what I would call dynamic tension. They now want to know something. They have curiosity. They're trying to get to the bottom of it. They want to buy the thing. They want to find out the answer. And so they're in dynamic tension. And that dynamic tension, like a rubber band, is pulling them towards what they perceive to be the quickest, best path to resolution of that tension. So what promise are they looking for someone to make? Because the ad is a promise. The promise goes, if you click me, then you will get ... So are they looking for information? Are they looking for someone who's going to be out there in 30 minutes? Are they looking for the best price? When you can figure that out, and you don't figure it out except by guessing and taking your best guesses and then running ads that speak to each of those and seeing which one works the best. So you want to think about what's that promise? What do they want to achieve at the end of their search? How do they want to feel at the end of their search? What feelings are they trying to avoid right now or get away from? So those are all elements that would go into crafting an ad that would speak to them better than anybody else's ad.
Mm-hmm. And then you also mentioned setting them up for what they'll see when they get to the website. So are you saying using the same words then on the website?
Often the same words, but certainly the same concept, the same theme. So, for example, the ad is really like, the sign, the searchers on the highway. The ad is the sign on the side of the highway telling them, this is what you're going to get when you pull off this exit. Well, if they get to that exit and you've told them that they're going to get, the Lodge Cast Iron Outlet Center, and instead they come to a place that's, a gentleman's club, well, there's going to be, the family of four looking for a skillet is not going to be very happy with that. So you want to make sure that you're continuing the conversation, you're continuing the promise, because someone's searching. It's like they're a bloodhound. They've smelled the sock, and now they're on the trail. And as long as they can keep smelling the trail, they'll keep following it. But when the trail gets cold, they'll just turn around and come back to Google and try something else.
Sure. Makes sense. Good. Before I move on to the next question, I want to give our listeners a web address. I've got webgeniussummit.com/AdWords set up. That's AdWords. And after the call, you'll be able to find links there to any additional resources that we mention here. All right, moving on. Beginner mistakes. What are the most common mistakes that can doom an AdWords campaign?
Right. I'm good at this question because I've made them all.
Aha.
So, because the nice thing is, AdWords is only like 8 years old, so I can still remember what it was like to be clueless. So here's some of mine. Putting all of my keywords into one ad group and showing the same ad for all of them. That's probably the most common mistake I see, because it seems very quick and easy to do. All right, you get all your keywords, busted pipe, broken toilet, water in the basement, sink installation, and then everything goes to one ad that says Joe the plumber, all types of plumbing, 30-minute guarantee, and that ad is then sub-optimized for almost every single keyword. It might be good if someone just types in plumber, but if they're typing in something else, you want to show them a specific path to what they're looking for. So it's a granular medium. So you get to show people different things based on what they tell you they're interested in. So if someone walked into Nordstrom and said, I want to look for red Argyle men's size 12 socks, you wouldn't first take them to the ladies' handbag section. You wouldn't take them to the food court. You would take them straight to the men's socks, show them the Argyle socks, show them the rack that's size 12, and then say, here you go. That's what's possible. But too many businesses just send everyone in the front door, send them straight to a home page off of all their keywords, and that's a very non-relevant path. And the Internet has made everybody ADD. We all, if we have to wait like a quarter second, we start noticing it. So we all have hundreds of windows up and applications, and the phone's ringing, and our cell phones are beeping, and we're getting IM'd. So if something doesn't look like the quickest path to relevance, people are just going to abandon it. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the top mistake. A second mistake is trying to get as many clicks as possible rather than trying to get only the clicks that are going to turn into dollars. And we talked about that earlier. So just like when you go to a gym, the question that people ask is, how much can you bench? And it really is not a relevant question, depending on what your goals are. And so what your click-through rate is not a relevant question either. You need to be testing for conversion, testing for return on investment. And AdWords has a reporting center where you can set up some code on your website, and it will tell you exactly whether each keyword made you money or lost you money. And I've got to say, very few campaigns take the time to set up that conversion tracking correctly. And so they end up guessing about what's making the money and what isn't. I would say those are the two biggest beginner's mistakes that are going to turn it into a money pit instead of a successful advertising medium.
Cool. And on the last subject, those tools are just right there available for anyone to use?
Yep, they're there. They're free. Now, thankfully, Google doesn't do a great job explaining itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to work really hard to understand AdWords, and I had to write a 408-page book that explains how to use AdWords.
To remind yourself?
And, well, among other things. I mean, the fact is that they don't document what to do very well. So it's very understandable that someone who just goes into Google and that's not their life's work is not going to understand how to make it work. I mean, I've seen this myself. There's two new Google products that I was really curious to try, Google Wave and Google Buzz, and I can't figure either of them out. So Google is great at creating stuff, but they're not so great at explaining it. So, those tools are in there. They are absolutely free. Inside your campaign are tools for AdWords conversion, tools to see what people are doing on your website, which are in analytics, and an amazing, wonderful tool that will allow you to very easily split test different pages on your site to improve your conversion. And that's all free, and it's all within your AdWords account.
Awesome. Cool. Hey, you also mentioned with the Nordstrom example about walking someone in the front door versus direct to where they need to be. What is the best place to send AdWords visitors? You kind of said the home page might not be it. Are there other pages? Should every keyword potentially go to a different page in the website?
In a perfect world, every keyword would go to its own landing page. A perfect world meaning you had an infinite number of hours in the day, and all of them could be spent on AdWords. Realistically, that's not going to happen. Most businesses, in fact, find that if they have, let's say, 1,000 keywords, and that may sound like a lot to people, but it really isn't when you think about all the different ways you can slice and dice. But of those 1,000 keywords, maybe only 10 of them are really important. 10 of them will be high traffic, relevant keywords. And so for each of those 10, I would say, treat each of those like your movie stars. So you'll have a lot of, extras. You want to treat them well, but it doesn't matter if one of them goes away. You have lots of extras. Then you have sort of bit players who, the character actors who might appear in a single scene, and they need to be treated pretty well. But then you've got your superstars. Your 10 keywords each, get their own trailer with bathtubs full of Perrier. And
right.
So those are the ones that you want to send to their own landing page. You want to have their own ads, and you want to have them in their own ad groups so that you can monitor them exquisitely in case something happens, because those are going to be the lifeblood of your business.
Interesting. Cool. My question here, is it okay, recommended, or discouraged to send AdWords visitors to an opt-in type page?
Well, I would say for most businesses, it's imperative to get the opt-in. Because as I was talking about how ADD everyone is, You've just spent $1.50 to get someone to come to your website. They're there for 3 seconds, and the phone rings, and their email dings, and they get distracted. And I don't know if this ever happens to you, but sometimes at the end of the day, I'm turning off my computer and I'm closing down window after window, and like half of the windows up there, I don't even remember. Like, oh yeah, that I forgot.
Never
I was
finished that task.
Yeah, I forgot to book my flight again. I've got my kayak and fly.com open, and I can't even remember what trip this was for. So to avoid that problem of getting someone to spend $1.50 for 10 seconds on your website, which is a ridiculous hourly wage.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
to avoid that problem, you want to quickly, if you can, get them to give you their email address so that you can stay in touch with them over time. So instead of trying to get them to marry you as a result of one marathon date or one really long sales letter, you want to date over time and take the pressure off through email follow-up or phone follow-up or whatever makes sense for your business. So you definitely want to get an opt-in. Now, whether it's an opt-in page, as in there's nothing they can do on that page except give you their name and email address, and then you'll let them in, or then you'll do other things, Google frowns on that.
Okay.
Because people find it annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You wouldn't walk up to someone in a bar and say, hey, I'll tell you my name if you give me your phone number.
Right.
Right. You start with sort of respectful conversation, and you get to a point where you've shown them enough that they'd be willing to exchange contact information with you. So I would say, the page, you'd want to make it look like a professional website. You want to have navigation on the top or the left. You want to have options. You want to have places they can go so they don't feel squeezed. But you do want to make getting the email address a key priority in general. Now, if you sell paper clips and it's very transactional, that advice doesn't hold. You want them to go buy your paper clips because you know what? When they give you their credit card, they're also giving you their contact information. So you don't want to stand in the way of that. But in general, if it's a multi-step sale or it's complex, you want to give people a reason to stay in touch with you, whether it's a 5% coupon off their first purchase or a white paper or a report or an email course, some nice bribe to get them to stay in touch with you.
Good. All right. One of the issues that I want to address is the amount of AdWords spending that our listeners need to do. So when they're setting up a campaign, it's not uncommon to see messages like you're below the first page bid, and Google throws out a bid estimate of like $2 or something like that. I've seen this on that exact example on an exact match for online chocolate schools. But if you actually do that search, there's no one that comes up matching that phrase in the sponsored link section. There's only a bunch of colleges and universities. They're probably advertising online schools as a broad match, but have nothing to do with chocolate. So in that case, is a business simply just stuck either bidding the $2 or more to show up, or ignoring that keyword phrase altogether, or is there some other option?
Well, first, I'm really curious as to what the intent of the search for online chocolate school was, because if I knew about such a thing, I'd be going there too. Yeah, so there's a couple of things going on. One is that Google, about a year and a half ago, became really, really interested in revenue. It sounds kind of funny to say that, but they've go from don't be evil to, at this point, really trying to maximize their AdWords revenue. I think they were a little spooked by the recession and really wanted to get as tight as possible. And one of the things they've done to maximize their revenue, in my opinion, has been harmful to advertisers and searchers, which is to aggregate keywords into bigger auctions. So if you, in the old days, if you had a keyword online chocolate schools, and you were the only one who thought of that keyword, now granted, almost no one's searching for it, but if somebody did, you had a huge advantage because you'd only pay a nickel or less because there was no competition, and you would be the only ad that showed up, unless they were unless they gave some broad match, but they would give precedence to an exact match because they said, well, that's exactly what the person's looking for. But with this focus on revenue, they've now said, well, we can get more money if we lump that search in with a whole bunch of other searches. So I don't really have a strategy, right? Google's in charge. They're as big as they are, and they get to make the rules. So there are times when the first page bid will appear to be arbitrarily high. And there's nothing, there's almost nothing you can do about that. One thing you can do is take a look at the quality score of your keywords. So maybe this also could go under the beginner mistakes, except quality score didn't exist when I was a beginner, so I didn't get to make that mistake. But in any of your pages on AdWords, that you can go in and customize the columns and pull up a column called quality score. And the best quality score is a 10, and the worst is a 1. And Google is going to multiply that by your bid price, essentially. So that the higher the quality score, the lower your bid price has to be for any given position. So if Google deems your ad to be of poor quality, and it'll judge it based on both is the keyword, is it related to the keyword, and are people clicking on it, and is the landing page okay? If that's a problem, Google may just be penalizing you because they don't want their searchers to see irrelevant ads. And they know if no one's clicking on it, it doesn't matter how much you're bidding. They're not going to make any money. So they'll give volume discounts to advertisers who write ads that get lots of clicks. So that's one thing you can do, but otherwise, until Google changes its algorithm, and I'm confident they will, because it really doesn't make sense long-term for anyone. But for the moment, that's the reality.
Well, provides a good experiment anyway. Awesome.
Yeah.
What else? Is there something else advertisers can do if their bid prices are seemingly coming out too high?
Yeah, well, in general, that was one specific example. In general, the bid prices are high because that's what the market will bear.
Okay.
So what you can do is get better at getting clicks, which will lower your bid prices. You can choose keywords that are more affordable, and some of the biggest keywords by volume are quite affordable because no one's figured out how to monetize them. So, for example, you might bid on the word cat. You can probably get it fairly cheaply, and there's 10 million searches a month for cat, but those people don't seem to want to buy anything. They're just maybe looking for pictures or. So if you could figure out better than anyone else how to monetize a keyword, you could make a lot of money that way. But basically the keywords are priced so that the average price of the keyword in the marketplace will coincide with the break-even point. So one thing you can do is get better at getting clicks. The second thing you can do is get better at converting, making more money, so then you won't care whether the click price is high or not. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a reason that Los Angeles DUI lawyer is a $50 keyword.
So a lot of people, they're diving in, they're getting to work, getting their AdWords campaign set up, and then they get to a point and they think, whew, got through that. But I think all along you've been plugging away at saying things should be improved, whether it's improving their keywords or improving the clicks they're getting or improving their conversion. You're really saying that all these campaigns should improve over time. The moment you publish your campaign, you're not done and you can, just move on to something else. You should be getting better and better results. So are there certain techniques?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. The reason that's so important is that if standing still in AdWords is actually moving backwards. So one thing you can do is constantly be split testing, constantly be trying new ads, constantly trying new landing pages to see if you can beat your controls. It's very easy in the interface to just write another ad with a different message, run it for a little while, and see how it does. You also want to be pulling down reports, paying attention to those reports. You can do it. You can set it up automatically. You can set up a keyword report by conversion, meaning that it will show you which keywords made money, which keywords lost money. You can set up a filter so that you can say, show me all the keywords that got more than 100 clicks and lost money. And you can set that up to run automatically once a month. So it will look at the 1st through the 31st, and it will show it to you. So I can get one that will come up April 1st, and it'll show me all my March statistics, and it'll show me which keywords didn't do well in March. And that's all it'll show me. It'll just, it'll be attached as an Excel spreadsheet in my inbox, and I just open it once a month and take a look, and there's 10 keywords in there, say, that have lost money, that are getting a significant number of clicks, and I go in and I try to fix them. And I might move them to a different ad group and try a different ad. I might bid lower. I might try to bid higher. If I can't figure out what to do, I will pause them or delete them. And so that's one way to kind of just do housekeeping. It's like, whack-a-mole. You set up a report to show you all the moles, and then you sit there with your hammer once a month and just whack them down.
Is setting up those reports intuitive, or is that another area where Google just doesn't explain it real well?
Google does not explain it real well.
Okay.
My book explains it real well.
Oh, good.
I'm not doing this as a tease, but it really is kind of a complex series of steps to explain on a phone call. But it's pretty simple. And you know what? In truth, if you just go to YouTube and type in like setting up AdWords reports, I'm sure you'll find some good 10-minute videos that will walk you right through it. So you don't need me. You don't need me for that, but you should spend the time to figure out how to do that well.
Okay. Again, I threw this URL out earlier, webgeniussummit.com/AdWords, and we'll have links to some different resources in there. But now, Howie, we've got a couple questions that have come in. Some are listening in on a webcast, and there's a question box there. And somebody asked, if you're testing some ads against each other, how long do you really keep them up before you decide which one's working? Is it based on a number of clicks or a certain amount of time or both? What creates a valid result?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful question. And the answer is some of both. So there is a whole science called statistics that is basically interested in when a test is valid. Let's say, you flip a coin and it comes out heads. And then you say, okay, well, this coin is unfair because it comes out heads more than tails. Obviously, after one flip, you can't logically say that. But let's say you flip it 3 times and it's heads every time. At that point, are you willing to say, well, this is a funny coin? Probably not at that point, but maybe by 10, you'd start to have some suspicion. And if you did 50 in a row, you'd say, you know what, chances are. Now, obviously, there's a possibility that it was just random. But chances are, after 50, something's going on. So statistics is the science of where you can draw the line and say, chances are something's going on. Chances are this ad is better than that ad. So if you go to, do you have Jeff, do you have the ability to email people who are listening in?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I will look up that page. I don't want to send people on a wild goose chase. I can't remember the page. I'll look up the page and tell you, and you can tell people. It's a tool where you can just, a free online tool, where you can just go in and put in your numbers, and it will tell you, yes, you have a winner, you're 95% sure you have a winner, you're not sure, keep it running. So I'll make that available to people.
Okay.
The second thing is it is a function of time because you want a representative sample. So let's say you have a huge traffic keyword, gets lots and lots of clicks, and you run the test on Tuesday morning from 3 to 4 a.m., and you get enough traffic to be statistically significant. I would still run it for a week because the traffic at Tuesday at 3 a.m. is very different from traffic Wednesday at noon. So you know what's good for that group and not necessarily for the other group. So I would run a test for at least a week. Now, if your budget doesn't call for that, then you can set a low budget for the test and have it only appear at certain times. You can target different geographic regions so you keep your spend down. But between the two things, getting the right number of clicks, and I can't give you an exact number. Some people say 30 clicks. You can't say that because the closer the two ads are to each other, the longer you have to run the test to see a difference. So, but using the tool where I'll give you that URL and you can put that out and spend at least a week on the test to make sure you're getting an accurate reading.
Great.
And also be aware if you do a test on like red roses and you're doing the test on the second week in February, that'll be different than the third week in July. So be aware of seasonal influences on your traffic as well.
Good point. A question I don't want to take a lot of time with this because we are approaching the end of our time slot here, but just kind of a puzzler that came up. We talked about beginner's mistakes that can doom an AdWords campaign. I've actually seen an AdWords campaign recently that kind of seemed to doom itself. This campaign, it was started on March 1, and on that day there were clicks received on both the search network and the content network. But ever since then, there haven't even been any impressions. So it looks like it's been turned off, but yet it hasn't. The keywords report a quality of 7 out of 10. The ad group's enabled. When it was appearing, the average ad position was in the 3rd spot. The average cost per click, 96 cents. In trying to bring it back, the bid was raised to $3 to see if that would make any difference. The daily budget was raised to $20, but nothing is affecting it. The ads still aren't being shown. They're all broad match. I've been asked to take a look at it, and I have, and I'm stumped. So I'm wondering, what could prevent a campaign from showing any ads at all? Is there something that I'm missing? Any ideas you might have?
Well, I feel like one of the car talk guys. Like what I want to know, what noise does the campaign make? It's really hard to diagnose, and sometimes Google just gets things wrong. So I've seen lots of examples where it'll say ad not showing, and then you go do a search, and there's the ad. So Google is not perfect, and there are glitches. I would say there is a help button or support. You will get into an infuriating series of chats with people whose life's ambition seems to be to imitate artificial intelligence poorly. But you may get someone to take a look and do something. Otherwise, you can go to an AdWords agency that has a rep, and a human being can go in and look at it. Otherwise, here's something else that sometimes happens is if this campaign is set up position preferences, which is to say you tell Google, I only want my ad to show in positions 1, 2, and 3. And then if your bids are not high enough for that, Google won't tell you. They'll just show your ads like the null set, like there's no intersection between your budget and your preference. So that's something that I have seen. Otherwise, you just may not be. Does it say like first page bid is this much and you're below it?
No, it makes everything look like everything's groovy. No error message of any kind. No complaints. So all looks well. Looks like it's a functioning campaign, except there are 0 impressions and therefore 0 clicks, except for except for one day.
Yeah. If it was my client, my guess is I would take a look at it, and 75% of the time I would not be able to figure it out, so I'd call a rep.
Okay. Well, I'll accept that advice.
I wish I had something smarter to say, but that's the truth.
That's all right. All right, well, we're running out of time, so my last question of the day. I always like to end by returning to the purpose of our Web Genius Summit, and it's always good to put the pieces together. So I'm looking for what our listeners can do right now. They listened in, probably learned a bunch of things they hadn't thought about before, and I want them to take some action so that the time was valuable for them. So what's one thing they can focus on right now, still today, using AdWords to make their business more profitable?
Okay, so the question assumes that they have an existing AdWords account right now?
Let's assume that, because if they don't, I guess the advice would be to get one.
Yeah, that would be a. Well, you know what? I'll give the same advice. I'll give advice to if you have it, and then we'll adapt it if you don't have one yet.
Okay, sounds good.
So go into your account, and first of all, if you don't have conversion tracking, absolutely get that set up. Because nothing else we're going to talk about is going to matter until we have data on conversions. And if you don't sell anything online, you can do leads. And if you don't measure leads online, you can look at views of a key page. Something. There must be something on your site that you want people to do, and if they do, it's better for you than if they don't. So anything can be a conversion. So if you don't have conversion tracking set up at some level, get it. That would be my first advice. But assuming there is conversion data, go into your account and sort the entire account by keyword. And you can sort by impressions or clicks or cost. Whatever is most important to you, you're going to find just a few keywords that are vastly more important to your business than all the other ones. And make sure each of those keywords is in its own ad group. And so you can just start with the first one. So you're giving people one thing to do. Your most important keyword, make sure it's in its own ad group. Go to Google, type in that keyword, and print out the search results page and study it until you know backwards and forwards what everyone is saying to that market. And then go sit down for 5 minutes and write a page in your searcher's diary about that search, what they care about, why they did the search, what matters to them, what they're hoping to find. Just sit down, set a timer, and channel that person and write as if you were them. Then, with that page in mind, go back to your Google search results page and see, does anyone talk to them in a way that they want to be talked to? And when you start seeing gaps between what they want, what really matters to them, and the messaging in the marketplace, write an ad that fills in those gaps.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And if you don't have AdWords, guess what your most important keyword would be and go do the same thing. Because wherever even if you never use AdWords, your messaging has to compete with lots of clutter. So this is what I talked about. This is the crux of this checkmate method that I talked about earlier, is to really see where you fit in this triangle between your offer, what your customer wants, and what the marketplace is currently saying. And there's always going to be gaps. And the smart advertiser will pay attention to those two things and figure out where to position themselves for maximum effect.
Awesome. That is some great advice, and I think it is something that everybody can do right now. So that's just perfect, Howie. Thank you much. All right. Well, we're going to have to end it here. Before anyone leaves, I want to give out that web address one more time. Please go to webgeniussummit.com/AdWords. You're going to find a couple links there to additional resources, including Howie's book. and Howie's going to get an address to us for the statistical thing. I'll get that on there too, and also include that in an email for you. Howie, it was great having you on the line with us today. I sure appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be with us. And for everyone else, thank you for listening in today.
It was a great pleasure. Thanks a lot.
You betcha. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.